it is all about relationships. And how do you go about building those relationships? And in marketing, it's, that's our job, is to create that connection, and to build that trust, and, be nice, be empathetic, and, have some good, brings good karma.
All right, so welcome everybody to another episode of I'll Call My Woman.
Good job.
It's I'll Call My Woman today. I'm here with Tanya Meck and Jenn Haas, two friends of mine. Jenn I've known since I was 18 in college. Tanya, not as long, but a dear friend as well. And so these are two sort of A-list women in the C-suite women that are have seen it all, and they take no shit. So we started by talking about, I was complaining that I was being henpecked today, and they told me that that's not, I can't say that, even though the people that are sort of bothering me a little bit are women, right?
And then what did we ask you?
And you said, is there an equivalent word for a man?
Right.
And I said, I guess I can use henpecked, but it's not a hen's not a rooster. You could say
right, because there are very, very little words in the English language for annoying men.
Asshole, prick,
right? But
cocksucker.
Oh, there you go. Well, but would you say that? Is that what you would call somebody who would feel like
he's
being getting on your nerves?
Oh my God. Man, all the time I do it. I said, he's that other lawyer. I'm like, he's being a complete prick and asshole. Sure, I do. But I'm different, I guess. I don't know. Do you not see that?
I see some, I mean, they're all derogative terms when you're angry, but there's something about henpecked that is...
I won't use it if it's bad. But.
Yeah, I mean, some of the other words you use, like, I don't know, it's kind of it's strong. They're stronger words. Henpecked is a little...
word, too.
Yeah, it's a little derogatory.
Say the hen's pecking.
Okay, so like, what do you say? Like, if you're like, you just don't use it? You just say they're just people are bothering me?
Yeah, people are annoying. You said they're henpecking at me. Just say they're annoying.
Yeah, but it's
not bothering me.
I understand that culturally and historically, it may be. I could see maybe it could be misogynistic or something. But I'm using it just as I think it's the best metaphor because I feel like I'm being pecked.
Right.
But you're saying if one of those was a guy, I wouldn't have said that?
Yeah, I don't think you would have.
Or you could just say,
I'm open to like...
Oh, yeah, peck that. There you go.
Just take off the hen.
Now we can move on.
It's just the female going at you.
That's right. Just say I've been pecked at all day. That's perfect.
All right. All right, that's more sensitive, I guess. I'll say I'm open to like the suggestion, but I don't. All right. I mean, I just sometimes it's listen. My whole office is women, including, and then my whole house is women except for my son.
And your best friend's a woman.
And my best friend's a woman. So, yeah. So I don't know. But I get it. My intent is pure. I'll change that if that's what it is. But I feel like I'm being pecked at today, which is fine. But
you're about to be pecked a little more during this.
We just wanted to set the tone for the discussion.
I can be a pecker. So
that's right.
Peck at me.
The tone has been set. We're fine.
All right. So let's talk about what each of you do, and then I have some questions. So, Jenn, we'll start with Jenn. So, Jenn. So just some background. Jenn and I met the first day of college at American University in D.C., which would be August of 1993.
Right.
31 years. Mm-hmm. We were in the 6th floor of Letts Hall at American University. We were there a little bit early for something called SOAR. Remember that?
Right.
Is that what it's called?
Volunteer work.
Yeah, because the Eagles is the mascot, and they have you come early for SOAR. SOAR. It means like something. And we met there, and she was from upstate New York, and we developed a friendship, and we've been, platonic friends ever since. And so Jenn's sort of worked her way from American through various companies, startups, and sort of now has sort of found a rhythm in healthcare startups. Mm-hmm. And you are now the chief marketing officer for OncoHealth, which is Florida-based.
We have offices in Florida, but we moved headquarters to Atlanta.
Oh, Atlanta. Okay. Yep. All right. So you're in Atlanta. And sort of my understanding is what you've done with these other companies is you help sort of get them either to be taken public or some sort of liquidity or change of control event. Mm-hmm. You get bought out and you're off to your next gig.
Correct.
Okay. And so that's the healthcare space. Mm-hmm. That you're the chief marketing officer.
Correct.
And so Tanya, and so this is one of the questions I have. Tanya is the managing director of Global Strategy Group. And so my question is, what's the difference between PR and marketing?
This we could spend a whole
thing.
I could spend a whole thing. I mean, I'll give you the short version. And the truth is that there's it's converging very quickly, as is all the different marketing, PR, digital, social, public affairs, all sort of coming together, which is really just a way to position yourself for your company in the external and internal world, right? PR traditionally is earned media, storytelling. Marketing is traditionally reputation, branding, direct to consumer space. Global Strategy Group is really in the PR and public affairs space, which is highly regulated companies and industries and sort of that intersection of media, government, and business. But for purposes of this conversation, you could probably smush it all together because the things that we do are very similar.
But ultimately, both PR and marketing are dealing with how your reputation sort of is viewed amongst the public at large.
Correct.
Right.
Reputation, and then in both instances, tied back to business goals. So it could be sales, it could be bottom line,
You want to get bought
et
out,
cetera.
whatever.
Right.
I know part of something that Jen does, I always, from just riding in cars and she's on business calls and whatnot, I know she's always trying to, I don't know if you still do this as part of your job, is you're trying to get people placed with articles with the New York Times or the Wall Street Journal. So you want, the New York Times is doing something about the latest, healthcare trends, and you want your CEO to be there because then a venture capitalist is going to read that and say, hey, what's up with that company? Do some research, and then that can spur a buyout or an investment, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right. And how does that differ from so Jen is obviously captive to one company, right? So she's loyal to them. She has a singular goal, and that's to promote her company and to build them. You have that role as somebody who's hired by multiple companies to manage
Captive
that, right?
to many.
Captive to many. Loyal to none.
Captive to many. No, I mean, there's 160 of us. So, there's a little divide and conquer. We've got lots of different teams with lots of different expertise across a wide range of industries. We do some stuff in the healthcare space, healthcare and pharma, but sort of across the board. And what's both interesting and challenging about that is you end up having to speak in multiple voices and multiple different styles on multiple different platforms. So whereas, and I've done it for one company or one principal before, at least you have one voice. You know how they talk, how they like to be prepped, the words they use, where they're comfortable, what they read, what their friends and family and other influencers read. But we've got to do that over and over and over again and in different ways for
I see.
different
So where
clients.
Jen knows her CEO knows stuff, you have to be able to. It's a little different because you're serving many masters.
Right.
And we might engage from time to time a PR firm, public affairs. Like if there's something going on, I'm in a very compliance-driven industry, working with health plans, and so there are times where there are things happening on Capitol Hill where we may want to have a role in shaping either the legislation or getting our narrative across, and we would engage with specialized experts to kind of help us to do that, whether it's on the PR and the earned media or on the lobbying and some of the PA efforts.
But you've done that before.
That's where my career started.
Right.
So when I came out of college, I went right to Edelman Public Relations, which was one of the largest global PR agencies, working on telecommunications, public affairs, just IT and tech. And then from there, spent several years at PR firms doing, the earned media and the storytelling, and then eventually went in-house and was leading that. And to Tanya's point, it starts to merge, right? So what we're finding is you may be doing media, but you're then also going to a trade show, or you want to make sure that when someone reads this article, that then when they Google search you, try to go to your website, that matches what they're reading. And so you want a really consistent voice over everything, all of the different channels that could drive both awareness and influence. And so that's where the marketing really jets out to become more of marketing communications versus these very, distinct groups.
I see. So if somebody isn't large enough to, let's say, bring on a Jen or a team, they can hire you for a while until maybe they bring somebody in-house, Tanya?
Sometimes. I mean, usually we work with the Jens of the world, right? So she'll come and find us, and we usually work in retainer relationships, so we're there for a long time and sort of an extension as a team. Or in a crisis situation, sometimes we get called in, at the last minute. But yeah, we would work with chief marketing officers, chief communications officers, general counsels.
And saying so it could be positive or it could be crisis PR, right? There's something bad happens, and then how do you? So what is your role in that? Like as sort of the managing director? Do you meet, sort of size it up, and have your team run with it, and then you stay involved, or?
Yeah, it depends. I still do some client work. So there's a couple of clients that I still have my check-ins with, and I'm still reading and writing and proofing and running calls. But for the most part, opportunity comes in, I meet with them, we assess whether or not it fits for us and sort of fits our model and whether we think we could be good partners and be successful. And then we pitch it. Hopefully we win it. Then I pull together a team, and the next 12 months they're doing that business. And then my job is just to really make sure that the client's happy, my team is well resourced and well supported so they can meet those goals.
Interesting. What trends are you seeing now, like, for in terms of communication? I mean, are you seeing like the use of TikTok, Instagram? I mean, is how much of how important is it? Are you seeing that for your clients?
Yeah, listen, you've got to be. Jen was saying, you think about all the different channels that are available. You've got to pick the ones that work for your client, where the content makes sense, and most importantly, where their audiences are. I have clients who are not going to be on TikTok because that's not where their audiences are.
So you're saying that depending on where the space is,
well, where your audience is, and so then you pick the platform that matches who you want to talk to. You got to make sure you have content that's appropriate for that platform. And there was this huge push for social media content, and then we realized a lot of it was getting lost in the vacuum of everybody else's social media content. And then there's a big push for paid promotion, and so either it's digital advertising or you're doing boosted or paid social advertising. So that happens. And then at the same time, what's not dead for many of our clients is old-fashioned news coverage. Mm-hmm. And so there was a period just even a few years ago where, people decided, like, we don't need that anymore. We can talk directly to our audiences through social or digital media. And that's not necessarily
like what kind
true.
You're talking like the NBC News at night?
Yeah, I'm talking about the nightly news, the morning shows. I'm talking about the New York Times, the Journal.
Still has some bite to it.
Yeah, we still do it. Because then we can take that content, we can
take that
put it
on the socials.
We can put it in LinkedIn. We can have our sales team send it out. We can put it in newsletters. And so that is just one piece that can go in multiple different channels.
It's content, right? And it's validated
it's third party,
content.
Yeah, it's somebody else.
That's why I see like the Jimmy Kimmels and the Jimmy Fallons. They'll take their show and then they'll cut it up and push it out.
You're just reusing content, so you're taking it different bite sized.
Content and you just
content
push it
is content. That's right.
Interesting.
Yeah, and we can follow anybody. So if we wanted you to see something, Jen and I can make sure you see it at work. We can make sure you see it on your computer, on your phone. We can put it on a digital billboard because you know where you go to
my friend who's
work.
the SEO, I drove to an event recently at the Culinary Institute in Poughkeepsie, and my friend brought like a party bus, and he bought a guy who's got a 160-person SEO team in LA. The guy's made a ton of money. He wrote the book on it. Literally wrote the book on it. And he told me, he's like, we can figure out, like, we can market so specifically to even an individual person. We figured out how to game Facebook. So if I want to get something in front of this person, we can do it.
Absolutely.
He can have a thing that'll say anybody who drove by here today, I can market to them. Or even more manipulative, if let's say somebody is in front of a jury and as a personal injury lawyer, they could run ads to anybody who's within 2 miles of
geofence the building.
Geofence the building.
I can geofence your address, Rich, and drop into Hulu if you aren't paying to have a paid subscription. I can drop ads into your Hulu, into your Amazon. And if you ever walked through, I don't know if you've ever walked through Nordstrom, right? And you look at a pair of shoes.
Well, with
and
you,
next thing you know,
right. That was my first experience. The shoes followed me around everywhere. And I kept seeing, like, I must buy these shoes. They showed up on every single, they're advertising on the New York Times. No, they're not. They're just following me.
Oh, the Bluetooth. And
you can go into Home Depot. You're in the toilet aisle. You're looking at a Kohler. Next thing you know, you're seeing ads everywhere on your phone popping up.
Wow.
It's fantastic. I mean, Rich, if we wanted to, I mean, and this is where I joke with our team, I call it the dark arts, but we could not only target you, but we could target that same advertising or messaging to your friends and family and social network, people that you're connected online that you went to college with, people that if you're a politician, your donor, a board that you're on, et cetera, and your local minister or pastor, and we can serve that up to them. So all of a sudden you're hearing this from your network of influencers.
Wait, so I could ostensibly geofence the family court and start so people are in there, they don't have a lawyer yet, and then I can target them.
Yes.
not Target, but I can
It's
You
called
can
Target.
Target. You
Right,
do, yeah,
yeah.
I can show them what a great guy I am
Yes.
through a targeted ad,
Yeah.
Yeah.
right? And then they'll say, "Shit, I really should get a lawyer because I'm in over my head."
Right. And
Right.
maybe that Rich
Well,
Rockland who
where
I
have you
just
been all
saw.
my life?
You
I don't know
haven't
why
called.
you're just
Well,
asking
we
your
haven't
best
listened.
friend
You've
that's
only
right
called
now.
your girls
well,
today.
this is why I gotta call
It's
my
a problem.
call my
Call
women.
the guys.
Wait, so it's that crazy?
Yes,
It's that.
it is that. Yeah.
Wow.
And now in healthcare, which I'm in, that's sensitive. So we have targeting strategies, but there are
Targeting strategies.
places that we stop short.
Right.
So we don't go into the house. You actually can't geofence hospitals.
Yeah.
They don't allow
for
it.
privacy.
Right.
No.
What about the hospital parking garage?
You could geofence, all of Fenway if you were targeting the Longwood Medical Center, but you
Right.
can't go and I can't target
As a random
That's a
example.
random example.
As
of
a
course.
random example, but I can't target,
So if it says-
I can't geofence Dana Farber.
Right.
Right.
So then you get those ads. You're like, cancer? Like, we can help.
Right. Yeah. It's like you've got HIPAA violations among
Yeah.
many other.
So,
Wow.
certain
problems.
industries are regulated, but, there are very creative things that you can do, and a lot of money is going.
I just saw that like Facebook sold the DMs to Netflix. Did
Well,
you see that?
and Facebook and Google, they're always changing their algorithms
Well,
too.
'cause if it's-
Instagram does it,
But you know that expression, if it's free, you're the product? You ever heard that?
Mhm.
Right. And so clearly we're the product, right? So, but why would Facebook sell the DMs to Netflix? Like they sold all your DM content to Netflix. Why does Netflix want that? Right? They probably, I don't know, they're going to AI it, right? They're going to run it through
Right.
some chat GPT
Yeah.
to figure out how they're going to market it,
knows?
right? It's going to be the market, right? I mean, they want subscribers, right? What
they
people
want
are watching.
subscribers, right? Oh yeah, that's when you see like
But
recommended for
everything you do
and
on here is tracked completely,
Yeah.
and your phone is tracked
Yeah.
completely. Everything,
your
and so
cars probably tracked. All
Everything.
the stuff we have. Yeah.
a profile is put together, and then you could put the marketing together. So you can do it as specific as you want or as broad as you want. You can do people that are 30 to 40 with college degrees that have been
Oh, yeah.
to Whole Foods and
Yeah.
here.
Well, depending on the platform. So, there's all kinds of combinations
I
of
see.
data that you can collect and figure out where how you're going to target on different platforms. But I think like the moral is, besides people that do it professionally, is that everything that you do or look at, like you either have to shut it down or just not care that stuff's being tracked. There's all kinds of privacy settings, and you can
Right,
spend
but
a
majority of
full-time
people don't deal
job
with it.
doing that. So I think it's what's more important, and what I tell my kids and what I would tell other people is just be an engaged and knowledgeable consumer. Just know that that's what's happening, and these ads are showing up for a reason, and these messages are showing up for a
What
reason.
if I geofence my competitors?
You can do.
You can
So
do
when
that too.
they're doing consults, and then they go there, but then they're home at night,
Yeah.
they're on the toilet, and they look through, and they're like, "Oh, why am I? Oh, look, this guy looks like a nice guy. Oh, he's a little. Maybe I should consult
Well,
with him
you can
too."
do also account-based marketing on LinkedIn where you have. But again, like, why would you want to invest that money just to tweak them?
No,
right,
not
but
to
on-
tweet them. They wouldn't know. It would be for the
Your
potential client.
competitors or their
No.
clients?
So say somebody goes to consult with somebody down the road, right?
Sure.
Then I want them to come.
Oh,
They don't sign up. They're
geofencing. Yeah,
thinking about
right.
it. They then get an ad for me, and I just have
Correct.
a nice,
Yeah.
looking ad, and they're like, "Oh, this looks like a trustworthy guy," and they'll just look at it and say, "Maybe I should consult with him." Oh, I saw his sign before.
Correct.
But I'd be able to pull some of that revenue too. Wow.
See, all kinds of stuff for you to think about.
This is great.
Mhm.
This is amazing. So, all right. So then, in terms of, let me just back up a second then. So Tanya, you went to Drew, right, in New Jersey,
Correct.
right? And did you have a similar sort of career path as Jen? Like, did you go to a big place?
My career path has been all over the place. So I think I ended up in Connecticut at Trinity for grad school, but I really came to coach
And you're
collegiate
from
field hockey
Lititz,
lacrosse.
Pennsylvania.
No, from Akron, but my parents are now in Lidditz.
Oh, I thought it's Lititz.
Yeah, I know you thought it was Lidditz. That you've seen that little
Yeah.
snippet online.
That's just fun.
It's
no,
one
did
of
you
my
ever see that?
favorites.
That's so funny.
It's
But she's from Lettuce, but it's really
It's
like,
Lidditz.
It's Lititz. But
Lancaster
they say
County,
we
Pennsylvania.
could post this in from YouTube. We
You
should put a link in. But
it is one
the
of my
lady's like,
favorites.
what is it, like a weather reporter?
It's a reporter that's talking about the best small towns in America, and she's like, and number one is Littitz, and then you can hear them all start to
And it's
snicker.
Lititz. But, so you're from Akron, which is the rubber capital of the world.
Akron, Pennsylvania.
Oh, Akron, Pennsylvania. So not Akron, Ohio.
No.
Okay.
So grew up in Pennsylvania, went to New Jersey for school.
All right.
Came to Connecticut to Trinity College to coach field hockey and lacrosse.
And that was your
and get my master's degree.
right. So that's how you came. That's your
That's
connection
how I
to
ended here. I
Connecticut.
came here just temporarily, and
You settled
30
and had a family.
years later, I'm still here. But I've worked in a bunch of industries. So higher ed, government and politics. Spent a
Right.
long
Yeah.
time
So
there.
let's talk a little about that. You were the chief of staff for the Secretary of State.
Correct.
Right. Okay. So you did that for a bit.
I did that, and then I did a short stint at Eversource before it was Eversource, when it was Northeast Utilities, and was their director of corporate communications, and went into consulting. Also took a little detour for a couple of years, about 5 or 6 years, to run my own comms business for a little bit in West Hartford, and had Connecticut clients, and then ended up at Global Strategy Group about 14 years ago, and I'm still there.
And that's New York based?
That's New York based. We're based in Manhattan. We've got a big presence in DC, and then a couple of other small offices.
So you're on the road
country
pretty frequently?
I was. Prior to COVID, I was on the road every week. Now I'm back and forth to New York fairly regularly, and in and out of DC occasionally.
I know that you guys probably both, I know from Jen particularly, you guys travel a lot in this type of field, right? I mean, it's hard to get everything done with Zoom,
Yeah,
right?
I mean, you can do a lot with Zoom, but there's something about I had talked earlier about being able to speak in your clients' voices. And so without being physically with them and in their culture of their offices, if they're still, if they're hybrid or they're in office, without seeing that, sometimes it's harder to pick it up. And it's still easier to develop relationships with people when you're in person. And it's better to pitch and sell business when you're in person.
Sure, of course.
As everybody in here would
No,
would
I
know.
picked a public affairs firm because they came and met in person.
Yeah.
The other ones called in and did it virtually
Yeah, you're
because
like,
of the snowstorm.
Exactly.
Right, and I
make
was like,
the effort
well,
to get there and meet in person and shake hands and make real eye contact. It's not two dimensional. It's just it's better. So when I can, I do travel for that.
And so now with the so now when are you doing, how much of the work are you doing now is just managing people or managing clients? Or
most of the work I'm doing now is managing people and the P&L, the business, figuring out how to grow the business, scale the business, and doing sort of talent retention and recruitment too, along with our
do
HR
they still
department.
pull you in though for stuff?
Yeah, so I'll come in. I've got a couple of big clients. I'll come in for key client moments and campaigns. I will do crisis when it pops, either with clients, existing or new clients, and I still like that a lot. But I also have really enjoyed learning about the business and growing that piece. That's been
Learning about a client's business?
learning about our business,
how to make money, right?
The business of our business, right? I call it the business of the business when I'm talking to our team. But that to me has been I've been doing communications for forever, and I love it. And I always joke, I'm very comfortable with the written and the spoken word, but now I'm comfortable in spreadsheets and profit and loss statements.
But I mean, your business, the sort of, it's simple, right? It's you pay a bunch of people and you hope that you take in more money than what you pay them.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah. And on the comm side, your costs are labor and your people, right? And their time. And just like a lawyer, you base it on hourly and your professional services firm. And then we have a whole research component that's the other half of our firm. And so you've got hard costs for research if you're doing polling or online work. And then we have a whole creative. We have the Lab, which is a creative and digital agency in-house.
So they're doing
production, and we've got costs and vendors and stuff exactly for that. So it gets a little more complicated on the pricing side, but it's a professional services.
Professional services, just like a law firm.
Yep.
Right. There's
very similar.
The product is it's services, and it's just you take in hopefully more than you pay out.
Yep.
All right, and then. Are you? I want to talk about sort of the women in the workforce, but are you a circle back woman?
Oh my God, I try not to be.
Are you circle back?
I am.
I heard you on the phone.
I will own it.
You're a circle back. Yeah,
Yep.
I'm gonna
It's
circle
hard.
back.
It's hard not to say it. It's hard. You do because you get used to saying it, and then you
What are
catch
some of the
yourself.
other jargons that you have? I heard you on the phone
Put a pin
before.
on it.
A pin on it.
Or in it.
I'll revert
My
back.
team could probably just give you the list.
The list?
I think every Zoom call they just write it down.
I heard one that's so obnoxious, and I want you guys to try to work it in. And then, if you could
is this
secretly
the one
record it,
told
you
me
got to use it.
to say.
You got it. So when you start the call, you say, "All right, allow me to curate the space."
Yes.
Oh God,
It's so awful, but you got to use it. It's so
freaking
bad.
terrible.
What if it's like a fire drill? Do you use fire drill?
I don't use fire
Do you
drill
use fire
that
drill?
much.
Oh yeah, we say like, okay, now it's a fire drill, or what a fire drill, or what an expletive fire drill.
But you're not a circle back, but you are still.
I'm circle back. Let's table that. Let's circle back on that.
Put a pin in it.
Not so much a pin in it.
How about email? Do you ever write back to somebody and you say, per my last email? Do you ever do any of that?
That's a bit aggressive.
That's aggressive? Per my last email?
Yes, per my last email, either you didn't listen to me, you didn't acknowledge it, or I'm just restating.
Or would you say, I'm hoping, I'm trying to understand? What
language, email is tough, right?
Yeah.
Because it's always that, or if not, it's okay, right? We get a lot of, women tend to, there's a lot of.
Yeah, tell me about this.
There's
Is it
a
different
lot
for
of
women?
conversation around how women write emails and communicate and, coming across too passive in emails. But then if we put per my last email, comes across too busy. Like, that's not how I normally am. That's not my personality. So that feels aggressive when someone receives an email.
It's sort of
like
interesting. And I want to talk about this because as I view at least the law, and the law has always been, I think, I mean, it obviously didn't start out this way.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, Ruth Bader Ginsburg she came out of Stanford or wherever she came out. She was a secretary, right, out of law school. So it hasn't been that way. But I at least as I see it, and slap me if I'm wrong, but I've always seen it, at least in the modern era, as a meritocracy. Like I've never, even when I worked at big law, it's like, listen, you can produce, you can bring in the business, you can lawyer. We don't care who you are, man, woman, transgender, whatever it is, just make the money for us. I at least saw that in the law. Like I didn't.
Well, that's because you're a man.
Maybe.
Right.
I'm open to that. That's why I want to explore with you guys because, but I don't know. Is the law, do you think, any better than, let's say, corporate America in that regard? Or you wouldn't have a way to know?
No, I would have a way to know. I think the people that I work for or that I would surround myself with tend to have that same philosophy of, the work's getting done. I don't care if this is a male or a female.
Right.
But there are still industries that are predominantly male dominated.
Sure.
And, one of those being finance and investment.
Like finance bros.
And venture capitalists, private equity. And so, I can be sitting in a boardroom and the entire board can be made up of men. Right. And there is, that does,
But what is
I think, Rachel, and when I said it's like you see that meritocracy because you're male,
maybe,
right? You're a white male.
Yeah.
The reason I say that is, and because there's something that we think is intuitive, like in my business, if you're originating and you're bringing $1 million of business, I don't care if you're a man or woman, whatever. Yeah. The ability to originate, using this example, a multi-million-dollar portfolio of business is attached to things like your network, how willing people are to give you business.
Yes.
How they perceive you in the room when you're pitching the business. I've had clients who don't want to listen to the principal on their account and they feel that she's too brusque or too aggressive. And then you put a male. So it's one thing to say like, hey, we're all considered equal, in our output and what we produce. And the truth of the matter is you sometimes can't produce at that same level because
because of those underlying
inherent biases. There's other things that have happened along the way. There's a gap in promotion, so maybe you're not as senior as the male for whatever reason. So there's lots of things that play into that. So it's not so cut and dry as, I can produce more than you can.
Oh, I see. Because you may not be able to produce at that same level because you're disadvantaged in some way.
Correct. At some point, currently, previously, there's a whole bunch of other things to consider.
Right. So, it's sort of interesting. I do see that sometimes with clients when I have, my associates kind of working on stuff. Now, granted, sometimes people, they know that I'm more senior than them and maybe they want that, but I do sense sometimes that they don't, they say, oh, they weren't aggressive enough, or there's sort of that kind of thing. And it's like, well, I try not to be very aggressive at all. I try to, but they think that because I'm a man, maybe that I'll be more aggressive in some ways, but sometimes being aggressive isn't the right approach.
Right.
Correct.
Right. How have you seen that in your career? Like, has it been overt, covert, Jen, like in terms of like what you see as sort of men or treating you differently, or women treating you differently because you're a woman?
So I think one, just my style in general is, in being in marketing, it's a very creative industry. And so I do tend to come off more creative, more empathetic. And, there's these like tests that they make you do, like Watson.
Yeah. Myers-Briggs,
all of that.
ESTJ,
and so,
by the way.
I have a very high EQ,
right,
which works great in marketing. In the type of marketing that I'm doing, I'm trying to build a brand, trying to get a unique message out in the marketplace, and I'm trying to differentiate the company. And so to have that, like, what is going to move the needle and get you to take the action that I want you to take, my personality and therefore the work product and how I run my team is like very effective. But that's very hard if you want a very repeatable, consistent, like business, right? Like in finance, when you're, the numbers are going to be the numbers, right? In marketing, we may be telling this story here and that story here, and now we're doing this. Like there's just much more variety in my day to day and the work that I'm doing, and not as much predictability, especially at like the size of the companies I'm at, and so some of that can come across where they just like people just don't know how to collaborate or how to manage me. But like I said, like my boss right now, my CEO right now, I've worked with him over the course of 20 years at various jobs. He knows my style. I know his style. We work very well together. I've never seen bias there. I've never seen him display any bias between my male colleagues. In fact, our leadership team was 50-50 in terms of men and women. There's been other places where they tend to, the man can say the same thing that I just said, and, or there's mansplaining. I mean, that's a term that you may not like, as we're like, oh, it's just mansplaining.
No, I get it. But it could also feel like, I think you've told me that before. You said you're mansplaining me, and I'm like, no, I'm just explaining to you, like,
right. But
you didn't. But it was my tone or something.
It's the tone, and it's the assumption that I don't know this, and so.
No, but you've said to me like, you're mansplaining, and I'm like, no, I'm explaining, and you're like, whatever. But I try to be sensitive to it because.
Right. But I've got to say, on a whole, I've never felt like I was paid less than my male colleagues that were doing the same job as me. I've never felt that I was passed over for promotions throughout my career.
You haven't personally.
I haven't personally felt that way. No,
but it certainly exists.
Oh, of course, and it could be existing, and I'm not aware of it. But I've always felt like I made a very good salary. I always felt like I was given the opportunities to grow and to move forward.
Well, and also you don't have any children, so that we don't know where that would play out.
Correct.
Right? There's a lot of talk of, and people, lots of stories and lots of data on women getting children.
I've never stepped out of it.
I know that's a huge deal. So maybe it could be that they say, oh look, she doesn't want to have kids. She has nieces and nephews. Like, she's great. She's not going to take any time off. It's not going to be a cost to us.
Right.
That could be the underlying theme, and you wouldn't know it.
Right. Exactly.
Right. How about you, Tanya?
I'm sure I have, and I'm sure and I'm sure Jenn has had too, and maybe we don't know. And I can think of a few examples in my 30 years in the workforce for sure, where somebody has taken an idea or talked over me, or I felt somebody who was not as qualified was promoted. But I think generally that has not been my experience. I worked at some pretty good places with some pretty good people who are very respectful, and it is meritocracy. Also, like, I'm at the stage as Jenn is probably, at our age in our career where we don't have to put up with bullshit if we don't want to. So like, I think if you were talking to somebody in their 30s or just starting out in the workforce, you'd probably get a really different answer, because it still does exist and it's still pervasive in many ways. But we're fortunate that we're at a stage where, we can call it as we see it. I will say what's interesting. I was having drinks in the city with two global CEOs, women, that I met through a networking association. We were talking about, and it's through sports. I played sports in college. They're athletes. And we were talking about leadership styles, and we were talking about how you see a preponderance of women in leadership positions at the very high level, played sports in college or at some level, and sort of congratulating ourselves and talking about like our leadership style, and that's why we're so successful. And then just sort of stopped and had this like existential crisis where we're like, wait a minute, maybe we're just leading like men, and we've bought into this entire patriarchy, right, from the beginning, and that doesn't make us special or different. It just means like we got co-opted into doing it the way that they do. It was a really interesting conversation.
Yeah, it's really interesting.
Because when I do those tests, I definitely come off on probably the more masculine leadership qualities of the scale. And
what does that mean, masculine?
It means decisive, risk taker. Every time.
But I know women that are like.
Of course you do. This is why the whole thing's bullshit. But when you look at the different perceived characteristics, right? That's sort of where where I end up. And those are the perceptions. If you look at perceptions of female versus male leaders, and what's if you ask what's good and we did this research years ago, what's a good quality in a female leader, they might say consensus building and good listener.
Right.
And when you ask them what's a good quality in a male leader, they will say decisiveness and ability to take risk. So
Dispassionate.
correct, analytical.
Right. They used to say that for president, by the way. They're like, "Oh, woman can never be president. Too emotional." It's like, look what we got like 4 years ago.
Look what we have.
Yeah.
So
we're probably gonna have again.
No.
So all of that to say, right? It is, you have. I take all of this sort of within the landscape that we're in, and this whole comparison about, I was thinking when I was driving over here, Rich, like we're talking about women in leadership, and so we clearly there's different expectations, there's different challenges, but it would be nice to sit down and talk to somebody about leadership, and I happen to be a woman sitting in that seat, versus, oh, this is going to be really interesting. Let's talk about women in leadership. And that, I think that's really telling, right? So we're still bifurcating the conversation based on gender. And there are unique differences for sure. But it's interesting to me. I would like to at some point just talk about leadership.
Do we think so? So sometimes some folks that are, more sort of the conservative sort of viewpoint on things, social things, they tend to say things like, well, if you want diversity on the Supreme Court, you want more Black people on the Supreme Court, or Hispanics or other minorities. We think of that as racist or in not proper, because that assumes that all Black people think differently or think, or they think the same.
Think it's a monolithic.
Monolithic. And so that's terrible to think, because they should do that. And so my question to you is, do women think differently than men?
I think we all think differently from one another.
Okay, but you don't.
We all have different and unique experiences that goes into how we perceive a certain situation or how we would handle a certain situation. You can go through training, you can go through school and have all of the same, we went to the same school, we probably took some of the same classes, but you may handle a situation or think differently about a situation than I do. And that could be for a whole host of reasons.
My DNA, how I was brought up.
Exactly.
Trauma.
I mean, I think a lot of, what happened before we turned 18 has a lot to do with, how we are still operating.
So you think that, and again, to Tanya's point about calling it's sort of like calling something gay marriage. Isn't it just marriage, right?
Correct.
Right. So is it the leadership, women in leadership. And the reason why I was saying, I sort of when I told you guys kind of what I wanted to talk about, the reason is that because I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, that women, you have a unique perspective given the historical biases and discrimination against women. I mean, look, we're 100 years from the right to vote. I mean, that's a huge thing. I mean, right? You couldn't. Right. I mean, they used to call the House in the 70s and 80s, and the woman would answer and say, "Could I talk to the decision maker?" Mm-hmm. Like what? Like women couldn't have credit cards until like recent. I mean, it's
1973.
Yeah, 73. Like women couldn't have fucking credit cards. It's crazy. So I think that we're not at a bifurcation stage yet, because that's too new.
Right. Yeah. No, listen, I think that's fair. To Jenn's point, I still say that the difference between me and Jenn is as great as the difference between me and you. Yeah. Right. But when you ask, what's really interesting to me, and I go back to sort of the environment, when you said, do women think differently than men? I think often we do, because we're taught to think differently than men. Right. So you can't separate it. And I think everybody goes back to sort of the biological difference. Women think this way. Men, I don't know that that's true. I think we were raised, we were taught, we were reinforced. 100% nurture person. And, it's what happens in your environment and what you see and how you get affirmation. And you learn this from the time you're a little kid until now. And that's really hard to unlearn, and it's really hard to unsee. Yeah. And so when you say women act generally a different way or like this, and men and by the way, I would say the same thing for men.
That's right.
Right? Men are taught, and maybe they're not comfortable in that role.
Well, what they're taught to play with, right?
Correct.
Like with dolls versus G.I. Joe.
Right. And that's, hopefully continues to change, but you can't negate that part of the equation. So that's where it just gets all really lumpy and mushed together.
Right. Have you found, again, that, I'm sure you've encountered assholes before in the workforce and whatnot. Have you found an equal number? And again, this isn't science. This is just anecdotes. But like, could women be very cruel to other women?
Well, that's just what I was going to say. I find that, yes. I think that sometimes when I look back, I'm like, the interactions that I had, like it was the women that were more difficult than, the men.
For you, yeah?
Yeah. And I sometimes,
Yeah.
you know,
What, you
I
have a
have
theory?
to. Yeah,
No, finish your thought.
No, you finish. Give
Because
your theory.
I've been thinking about this a lot, and I think that women and men can be assholes in equal measure. Because
Sure.
I work with
Oh,
both, right? As I think we probably all
Yes.
have.
Mhm.
My theory is that we have been trained to be competitive with other women, and it has been reinforced to us that if we're the lone woman at that board table, we're
Oh.
special. And so in order to protect that status, you unintentionally may not want to mentor or bring other women up, because all of a sudden when the table's filled with other women, you're not so special anymore,
Mhm.
right? And we don't think like that, but I do think so. This whole thing about women are nastier to other women, again, I go back to the environment and sort of how we are incentivized, and you know, how we benefit from being the singular woman at the table. And so, like, why would we? Right? But you have to think sort of past
No,
that. That's part of my,
brilliant.
and this
Yeah.
is like new, right? Like I'm just starting to
Right.
think about this. So as we're talking about it and it's being taped, you know, I haven't fully formulated all those,
No.
That's great.
all
I
those
can
thoughts,
see a
which
TED
is like,
talk for you,
which
on
is like a
this.
dangerous place to be. But I do believe that that's part of it. And we're so quick to be like, oh, women, you know, they're so difficult and they don't bring other women up. And I think, well, you know, let's set the parameters where that is rewarded and where that's supported, and then see what happens.
Interesting. Do you feel similarly?
I think that's spot on. Absolutely. I would also add too that when you get to that boardroom, sometimes you're just like, you know, swimming to just,
Yeah.
you know,
You're so fucking tired.
You're tired. You're treading water,
Yeah.
and you don't have time to think about other people.
Mhm.
I remember I was the first woman on the leadership team at my prior company. And, you know, I felt a huge responsibility to get more women at that table. And
But why?
Because I think it needed diversity.
But
You know-
but diversity just for diversity's sake?
No, so we had
but this goes to that
Yeah.
point that these conservative-minded people say, why would you need another woman? Why maybe the
okay,
other...
so more women, more LGBTQ plus people at the table brings more diverse thinking, right?
Does it,
like
though?
more ideas. Yes, because they've had different.
Well, I'm not saying
backgrounds.
I'm just pushing you.
Yes,
saying, but,
I know you're always
no,
pushing.
but that presupposes that the person who's, you know, gay, transgender, whatever they are, is going to bring a different viewpoint than the golfing guy that's, you know...
I want the golfing guy too, though. I want the golfing guy,
but just because they're different doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to have diversity of thought.
But
by nature of that they're gay.
Right, but the reason is we want a diverse group, so that when we're brainstorming ideas around how are we going to get in front of different audiences or influence different audiences, that we've got as many different viewpoints.
Yeah, but you're not. You're
no,
I
hear you, Rich. But listen, so I've got to go out and I've got to bring in consumers to use my new app.
Okay.
Right. They're going to be. If I put a bunch of marketing materials out there that doesn't look like the people that we're targeting, like, you know, like, am I going to use a Hispanic photo of a woman? Am I going to use a small child? And someone may come and say, you know what, I don't see myself reflected in.
Does that matter? Does it really matter?
It does matter if I'm trying to get someone to sign up for a.
Because I had a friend in like law school, and he was an Indian guy. We traveled all the time, and they always would come to him and like they try to make it look random, like the PR marketing people. Right. They'd be like, "Hey, Arvind, hey, we're just looking for some. Could you come? We're going to take a picture." And he'd be like, "Yes, you want the Indian guy? Like, just say it, you know."
Yeah,
so he'd go out there and do it. It was sort of a joke, but
no. But I've had, you know, my team right now has 5 women on it. We're all women. I would have hired a male if that was the best candidate to put on the team when I was building out my team. 5 women. We have had comments made to us that we are 5 white women. So how are we going to be able to, you know,
but I guess
have the best marketing out there?
But wouldn't it be better to
population?
get a poor woman and not just 5 white women?
Sure, I'll get a poor woman.
No, but I'm saying, but like, I don't know. What I'm asking is just because you're women? Like, I mean, there could be 5 women from 5 different demographics.
Right. It's about. Oh, go ahead.
Oh no, you go ahead.
No, it's because it's a diversity of experience, and so
well, that's right. Experience,
and what our HR director always reminds me too. It's not just what the visible difference or sort of the label, right? It's all of that experience underneath. So you might get somebody who has different social economic experience, right? And they look at the world a little bit differently. And on the outside, it might look like two white women or two white men, but they have very, very
Right.
deep, different experience with the world. And as a result, they're going to bring something
I
different
see.
to the table.
All right, because
right?
because I think sort of a lot of the criticism of this type of thinking sometimes is, well, if it's you're just picking the women to have women,
Yeah, if it's a quote,
that's
kind
ridiculous
of thing,
because
upset.
it doesn't, because there's women can be as diverse as the colors of paint at Sherman-Williams. I mean, but I think Tanya's right, is that if that's packaged better as, look, it's diversity of experience, because somebody who's socioeconomically like grew up poor and on food stamps is different than somebody who went to private school and lived in a mansion in Avon.
Right.
And they would bring better ideas because they'd say, well, wait a second, if I was looking at this, this doesn't sing to me.
Right. So here's a situation, a very real situation that
All
we
right.
had. So I'm the only woman at the boardroom, in the boardroom.
What's your last job?
My last company.
You're not violating it in the
Oh, no.
NDAs or
No.
All right, good.
No
Just looking out
violation
for you.
there. And now they have probably multiple women there. But we wanted to make an effort to get more, staffing was important, talent is in short supply. And we wanted to make an effort to get more women into our company. And we didn't even have a maternity policy, right? We had the standard like maternity package that the state required.
Just the basics.
But we had unlimited vacation. So the men could take unlimited vacation and get, a month to 6 weeks, paid. But the women, you have a baby, they know you're on maternity leave. And we had no mother's room,
No
we weren't
lactation
doing
room.
anything to bring women and to support women and the needs that they have so that they can, have a comfortable work environment and still tend to their family. Now, you highlighted, I have no children, but this was something that I knew would be really important to working mothers, of which were the age that we were also trying to get people to come in, into the company for. And the comment that I received was, well, my wife didn't have that when we had kids. Right? And that goes back to your point.
It's sort of like student loan payoff. It's
your
like, well, I
point
paid
of,
my
like,
student loans.
So you should have to pay
Well,
your
sort of
student
like,
loans.
well, I got polio. You shouldn't get the vaccine, right? It's like, well, no.
But that goes back to experience, right? When you're like, well, what about a rich woman versus a poor? Like, women are working in the workplace. At 20, 30 years ago, maybe more women were staying at home and choosing to raise their families, and that wasn't something that they needed to think about. But times change and things change, and having until that, like, if I wasn't at that table and bringing up our maternity policy, like, I don't know what would have, it just would have kept going as it was.
Wow. What about Tanya? Have you experienced in your career sexual harassment?
Yes.
And were you comfortable talking about it?
Yeah, it was forever ago before I knew what it was. So I can tell you, I was between college semesters at a summer job. And what's crazy about this, I was a receptionist and I was on an old-fashioned typewriter at a medical billing company. And I was actually the person in charge of figuring out the code for the insurance based on the medical report.
Oh my gosh.
So if you go back to, that 2 or 3 year time span, I'm sure there was a lot of appeals. But it was all women, right? So because it was a clerical job. And so everybody was billing and coding in the back room. And there was one man. And
you used to be able to go to, by the way, to go to like those schools for medical coding. Right?
Oh yeah. No, I didn't go to school.
You just learned it.
I just learned. I was a fast learner, or so I thought. I was like, that sounds like COPD, and that sounds like whatever, and I just code away. And it was a horrendous job. But there was one man. And there was a outing that they would do every summer, and you'd wear your swimming suit at the pool because they still did stuff. And he would comment, and it was so bad that when I would go to work, I would actually hug the wall so he couldn't see me from his desk to go to the bathroom, right from my desk.
Because he'd say stuff.
Because he'd say things, out loud, and he'd be crude.
Like sexual comments.
Just sexual comments, or like looking good, or we should go back the pool and your suit, just completely inappropriate. And the other ladies would kind of laugh because, we didn't know. I mean, I didn't really even have language for it. I was young 20s, late teens, young 20s. So I think about that a lot because, and I haven't experienced it that blatantly at all. Actually, I haven't experienced it at all since then, but I didn't have the language for it. And I didn't know that wasn't okay. It was, it was this whole sort of eye-opening thing when I look back and think like, oh my God, I should have complained. I should have sued him. There was a lot of things that I would have done. But that still does happen to people.
Oh, yeah. I have a friend
regardless
who's a
whether you have
plaintiff's
the language
employment
for it.
lawyer, and the stuff that comes in, there's still the
It's pretty
people
remarkable.
grabbing stuff and sending pictures. It's like, I'm like, you would think that there's so much knowledge about this now that it would stop, but it's still pervasive.
Right.
It's so what type of because I'm very careful. Like I have a couple of times where I've, I have other female colleagues that I work with, and I'll just say some of my male colleagues, I say brother, and some of the female colleagues, I'll say, oh my God, later sweetie, or later dear. And then I called them back and I'm like, oh my God, like, I'm sorry. And they always told me and they're like, listen, your intent is good. Like, you don't have to apologize. We know that you're not like a sexist guy. Like, that was just out of love. It was like an endearing thing. A colleague that I work with a lot. Yeah. But like, there is, there can be and I work with women, but I hope I don't do it in a pervy way or something, but I compliment, like, Julie's got a nice, she wears these cool outfits. I compliment her. I compliment Ellie. Yeah. Leanne came in this morning. I'm like, oh my God, your hair looks amazing. Like, I don't know. I think that's appropriate, right? I mean, it's.
Yeah, I think it's appropriate.
But it wasn't like lascivious. Like, I wasn't like, oh my God, look at those. Those jeans fit you. You can't say that.
Right. But, and it's nice to get compliments, right? Like, if if I'm wearing a new outfit or.
What's the best way for I'm always careful to say that. I'm like, oh my God, that outfit is great. Where did you buy it?
But I also think it depends on how familiar you are with the person, right?
Correct.
So when some of my colleagues say, oh, Jen, great shirt today. Like, I know them. I know they're not being pervy, but it's all in how you say it, the context. Lingering eyes. Like, if you've never had, if you don't have that relationship with someone. So I think
but
you're okay.
You can sense it though. Like, if somebody's
you can sense it versus if it's, what would be the difference if Tanya said, oh, Jen, I like your jacket. And then you should be allowed to say that too.
Oh no, I do. But it's, you're right. It can't be like, I can't make a comment of like, oh, it's so how it fits, or
it's so
that's so
right.
nice. But
it really makes
But other times, like, again, I do it in a way like if I have a strong relationship with the person, I'll say, oh my God, you look so pretty today. Right. But like that, not like, oh my God, you're so hot. Like, that's like.
What would you say to a man who looked particularly good?
Oh, I say it.
Would you say you look super hot today? You look very handsome.
So there's a guy that the girls love downstairs. He's this. I'm not going to say his name here because I don't want to hear. But I'll show you a picture of him.
Is he going to be on a future podcast?
Maybe he's a good guy. He's a younger lawyer, and he's so handsome. And every time I see him, I always say to him, I say, you are so handsome. I said, if I look like you, I'd be the governor. And he gets all shy and he so no, I pay him a compliment too. I said, you're always dressed so sharply. Like, I'll pay him a compliment too, because he's a good looking guy. He's got a great personality. And so, so that's what I'd say to him.
I think it's intent. It's intent, it's tone, it's relationship. And then, I think you are, we started out joking about the whole, like, I've been henpecked, right? But then you also watch for things that are like a little bit now not socially acceptable where they might have been before, right?
But what about, there's also an element, obviously work is different, but like, old fashioned, like say somebody's trying to make a run at you, like they want to, they're interested in you, but not like somebody who's your boss. Right. Like, you could go up to a woman on the street and say, hey, can I play you a compliment? Like, you are really good looking. Like, but that's different. That's not sexual harassment in my view. That's just like you're shooting your shot with somebody.
Like, if I were walking down the street or at a bar.
Let's say I was, I don't know, having coffee and I see you pass by and we connect eyes and I say, hey.
Sure.
I'm going to, not in the lascivious, so I say, can I tell you something?
But that's not in the workplace.
That's not in the workplace, right.
And
then in the workplace, you can't do that.
In the workplace, you can't.
I mean, that's the only place it applies, that law, right? You can use
No, you can be an asshole out there, right? You can't create a hostile, you can create a hostile life environment.
You can't create a hostile, West Hartford Center, and all of a sudden you're going to show up in court.
Right. So, but has anybody ever tried to grab you, or guys, or you never experienced any of that?
No, I've been very fortunate.
Do you know other women that have experienced that?
Not off the top of my head that I can recall. No.
Have you ever had to put a man in his place for being, like, you thought, like, acting in a way that was, mansplaining or like inappropriate in the workforce? Has that ever come up for you?
I have.
Yeah.
But I have given them the benefit of good intentions, and I do it with humor.
Oh, interesting.
So, and that seems to work much better. One, just assuming that they're not trying to be a jerk, right? Because often people aren't. And then just, a little joke lets everybody off the hook. and then on you go. Seems to work a little bit better for me.
I mean, I go through so much sexual harassment and security and compliance training. We have like every year we have to watch these videos of like these lecherous interactions. You know, it's late at night, the girl's working really late and the guy wants to rub her shoulders. And you know, so we're all I feel that after, you know, for a good 3 months after that, we're just at a height and we're just like, oh, was that wrong to say? Can I say that? You know, because we've just gone through training. So we have so much training on this that
there's also
that's required.
Can I tell you a joke? A friend of mine who's a pretty, you know, prominent plaintiff's lawyer, the joke is that every guy that he's had to defend or he sued that's a sexual harasser is always disgusting. And the reason is the sexual harassment means unwanted.
Right.
The guys are never good looking that are always doing this stuff. It's true.
Right. And it has to be, you know, there's rules, right? It's got to be unwanted. It has to be like we would all have to assume that, you know, feel the same way that, you know, that
No, what I'm saying is it's like the
line.
guys that like he'll show me, like, pull a guy up online. He looks like me. He doesn't look like Brad Pitt.
Right. If it was Brad Pitt, I might go out on a date.
Well, that's what I'm saying. That's right. Because it's not unwanted. Right. Exactly.
That is not unwanted.
They're all disgusting. Yeah. Those are very interesting. What about, all right. So what about in terms of, do you feel the need to dress a certain way as in a leadership role as a woman? Or do you just feel you need to dress professionally because you're a C-suite executive, you're playing at a high level? Men and women should both dress professionally in that regard. Do you feel
I mean, you know me, I love clothes.
No, you love.
So, yes. I mean, I'll take any excuse to have a certain outfit and a certain.
No, that's you. But I'm saying, but do you feel pressure for that?
I mean, when I'm in external settings and at events, like I want to look a certain way. That's, you know,
but is that just you, or is that reflective of your brand? Like,
yeah, I think that's me, and probably what I would expect of my team too. I mean, we're a reflection of the company, and so we want to, you know, dress a certain way and look a certain way when we're in meetings. You know, there's sometimes we're in a suit because that's a sign of respect to the people that we're meeting with. Other times we're in jeans and, you know, blazers.
So so are you telling me, is clothing a form of PR or marketing?
Sure. In my world, yeah.
100%.
100%.
You might go into a creative meeting wearing a t-shirt and a blazer and sneakers, right? I might go into a corporate meeting wearing something like what Jenn has on. I might wear my glasses. I might not wear my glasses. You know,
I mean, I do have leather pants.
You do.
So those are
I do
great
get
looking pants. Funky piece.
But it depends on the environment and what you're doing and who you're talking to and their culture. So we go back to this whole thing about sort of being aware of the world around you and you know, how they dress.
I remember there's a famous story when I worked in big law, like New York big law for a while, and there's this famous lawyer in New York, and the guy like shows up with these like London investment bankers. This guy's like one of the world renowned like bankruptcy guys, and he shows up. He's really overweight. He's got mustard and chili on his shirt, and so I remember this guy told the story about it, and these bankers, and the guy left the room. The guy was a big, you know, white shoe firm partner. You know, hair's disheveled, and these buttoned up, you know, Seville Row guys were like, "You're gonna fucking hire this guy," and the boss said, "Absolutely, because this guy's coming to the meeting with us. He's the partner at this firm charging $1,200 an hour. He must be the best in the world because if he doesn't even give a shit how he dresses, you know, he must be able to do that, right? Because he's like, you know, be able to do that." But yeah, I could see that too. I mean, sometimes, you know, like I'm in a shirt and tie today because I was at court, but oftentimes I sort of do the Steve Jobs, you know, black T-shirt thing, and it's who I am. Like I'm just like, yeah, I can put a suit on, but like I find that being more authentic, at least in my fear, you know, I have a tattoo. People are like, oh, like this guy seems like a down to earth guy. I find that helps me have a better conversion rate with people because they're like, this is a regular guy. He's a dad in the community. Like he can relate to me as opposed to, you know, I'm in a $3,000 Brioni suit. What is that going to get me?
Right. I mean, work-life balance is really important to me, and I try to make sure my team has the space to be creative, and that means taking the time to, you know, do whatever it is that brings them stress relief. So mine is I work out every morning at 8 a.m. There are calls that start at 9 o'clock. So I'm upstairs in my condo, like with a top knot in my hair. I'm in a sweatshirt on. I mean, you've seen me over the summer. Like, and I'm okay displaying that to my internal team because I think it's important that they see that, just like you said, like I'm a human being. I want to get the workout in, and then it's like, let's start the day and get this day going. And then there are times where, you know, you're in external meetings or you're at events and there's a certain way that you want to look to represent the brand.
Do you agree?
Totally. And I also show up in unwashed hair and a hoodie and workout gear on my
to
calls.
me, like, I never, like, I at least for me, like, I want somebody who can get the job done. And I always are like, I realize that we're all different and sometimes we're lazy about that kind of stuff, but we can be an amazing, marketer or PR person or lawyer. And I know, sometimes there are lawyers that there is, like, for instance, one of the things I will tell you historically, and I know a couple of people get mad if I say this, but if you don't have a branded email address, you're not a good lawyer. And I found that to be 100% true.
So you mean like a Gmail or something?
Because just if you want to get, Meck.com, right? I can set you up with Tanya at Meck.com or Jenn at Haas.com. Although there is a Jenn Haas who's a doctor, by the way, in Mass. Have you met her?
No, I have not met her.
She's at Mass General.
Yeah.
Anyhow, the point is I can get that for you in under 10 minutes and set up an email account that you'll have on your phone and GoDaddy, right? And so my view is if you can take the time, you don't have to even have a website, but it's, or JennHaasLaw.com. You could have that in 10 minutes. If you haven't taken the time to do that, then you're gonna not be good at what you do because you don't take the time to even know that basic thing.
Well, and there's certain things that people value that instills confidence in who they're hiring to work with, right? So if it's the email and the branded email that someone's going to be like, this guy's legit, he's got his own business, he must be successful, then, go create that.
Because like we have the signature block, right? And to me, that's like, okay, that comes with every, and sometimes they get annoying because they keep coming, but every email you keep seeing that. But no, but there is something that says I've taken the time to sort of display myself in a professional manner.
Correct.
Like that works in our unconscious, right? I mean, I'm marketing all the time, right? Just an email, right?
Yeah. Oh, listen, I agree. What I'm sitting here thinking about and processing is the difference between that, and I don't think there's a big difference, but and the guy who showed up all schlubby with mustard and ketchup on his shirt, right? He didn't take the time to pull himself together. Now we're saying the same thing. Now email is important, but he must be really special because he had the nerve to show up like that. So it's also a little in the eye of the beholder, right? I happen to agree with you that if you can't get a branded email, and for me, you gotta have at least a basic website.
Right.
You have to have a LinkedIn profile. Like, I have to be able to go somewhere
to see
and
about
get some more information. I'm very distrustful if I can, and I feel the same way sort of about appearance and respect and showing up at meetings. But everybody's a little bit different. Like somebody else, that Gmail might not bother them at all. There might be something else.
Yeah, I
wouldn't have hired that lawyer with the mustard. I would have been like, he's
he's the best in the world.
He doesn't have his shit together.
No, but he's amazing.
But you would have had to have known that.
Yeah, you have to know that.
Like, if you don't know that, you're going to be like...
But the guy drew a distinction. He says because he came out like that and he's at this, a 57th floor on Park Avenue, like, he's got to be amazing because he just doesn't give a shit.
Yeah,
like,
and then, yes. So...
and by the way, I'm at war with LinkedIn. Can we talk about that as we wrap up? Like, I know your website for your company, you don't even have bios. It all goes to LinkedIn.
Yes.
LinkedIn to me is so...
And we don't use X anymore.
No, granted,
We're only LinkedIn.
I have lawyers. Some of my competitors are on there, and they're putting all kinds of stuff. I think everybody is, I don't want to say... I say a very derogatory thing about LinkedIn. Like, everyone is sort of
promoting themselves,
fucking each other, and like, I am pleased, honored to report I got an award.
Yes, I've seen some of your posts.
Fuck you. Like, so what? Like, what do I need? What do I care? Like, yes, great, you're wonderful, you're making more money, great. Like, you're getting promoted, but it's just so, like, to me, it's so smarmy and like it feels bad, weird to me. Right? Do you feel that way about LinkedIn? You like it?
I do.
LinkedIn's wonderful.
Yeah.
For what?
Well, one, that's where you go to get information. So that's like if you don't have your website, it's your personal brand page. It's where you put all your stuff. It's where we go to look for talent. It's where recruiters go to look for
We're looking
talent.
for connections. Like just today, I looked up your LinkedIn. I'm like, I wonder if we have any connections. We have like people. I know people in marketing and government affairs.
No, I can see how that'd be helpful, but I don't like that element of everyone's just like, I got this award.
Part of it is when you update if you get a new job, it
blasts it out to everybody.
Now you can turn that off if you're paying for it. Like you can control some of that, but you are communicating in owning how you communicate to your network of people. Otherwise, how are people going to know
I
when
don't
you
get any
change
clients from
jobs?
there. I don't find I do. I mean, my friends that do it, that they're more put together than I am, they put stuff on there because they're looking to get appellate work from other lawyers. So that's what they do. I'm not chasing that business. I'm a retail kind of
Right. Well,
establishment.
but that's we're talking about the platform. Like, where are the people
Yeah.
that you're looking for?
I
Where
do food
are they?
reviews there.
They're not in LinkedIn.
Yeah, I do. I post
right?
food reviews for a
that's
time.
great.
Yeah, yeah. And then I put awards my kids give me on there.
Are you putting this podcast there?
We haven't yet, Jules. We got to put it on there. Yeah, I got to do that. I got to backlink it. But I just have to, and then I get these people write to me all the time when they're like, "Hey, Rich, I hope this finds you well. I'm like trying to build my network," and I write back, and of course I get passive aggressive. I'm like, "Do you really hope this finds me well? I don't know you." I write that to these people. No, because I'm like, don't.
This is in mail, like just marketing, etc. Right?
Like, don't. This is inauthentic.
Do you reply
to me.
to every
No,
email
not
that
everyone. But
comes
sometimes
up?
I write, like the girls will see me. I'll get these messages. You know, you probably, how many spam messages do you get people trying to sell you something?
Yeah,
I get all
all
the
of
time.
them.
And they write stuff to me. They're like, just following up. Wasn't able to reach you last week. And I write back, I'm like, yeah, because I ignored your email. Like,
But
I'm like,
now
I'm
they're
like,
going to keep sending it because they know they got a
No,
live one.
but
They
it
know
just-
you're
it's
seeing
just-
it, and they know your email's
so
legit.
for me, I don't like things that are inauthentic. I've built my career and my path with authentic, and this is part of the podcast, authentic connections. And don't try to shortcut it, because I'm not going to let you shortcut it. Because in my view, there's no shortcuts to relationships. You have to build them. You have to look people in the eye. And you have to gain trust. And if you're going to cold call me, at least make it a warm lead by saying, Jen said that, or Tanya said that we should go have coffee, and then I'm in. If you're not going to do that, I'm not interested. I don't want a one-night stand on LinkedIn. I want authentic communication. And that's, again, the basis of this podcast is I'll call my woman, call my guy. It's that you have to build relationships.
It is all about
and
relationships.
And there's nothing, and I tell this to my children all the time, there's nothing more important than a relationship. Nothing. And even in the law, like just being the relationship with the clerks, and the relationship with the judges who know your rapport, the relationship in your industry with people, with a reporter that you can call up and say, hey, brother, like you're not, you got this completely wrong, and you can sort of talk them off of the ledge to do that because of the rapport you have with them. So
No, I think
anyway, that's why that rubs me so
no,
poorly
you know
in
what?
LinkedIn.
I love that, and I love that you called out sort of that's your brand.
That's my
right?
brand. I'm
For
like,
sure.
stop with this.
And you know, I think one of the things, and certainly Jen and I on the marketing side push the boundaries, but I think one of the issues that we have is that people believe they're in relationship with a lot more people, or they're in relationship with brands, you know, or these other entities, and the fact is, you know, they're not. And so this type of conversation is, and the conversation I had a few nights ago with the two women that I was talking about, these are the things that I think really feed people.
All right, as we wrap up, do you have a maxim or a little saying that you know, again, that you sort of try to incorporate into your life or your professional life, or something that people should follow, or that you follow that you find is helpful, it's been helpful in your life and career?
I think the thing that I find myself talking about is karma.
Karma
And karma points, and how much karma points you have to cash in for something.
Okay.
But, you know, I think it's just, you know, just be nice, you know, and to your point, like, it is all about relationships, and how do you go about building those relationships? And in marketing, it's, you know, that's our job, is to create that connection, and to build that trust, and, you know, be nice, be empathetic, and, you know, have some good, brings good karma.
How about you?
Mine's about finding little moments of joy, right? Not just waiting for the next big thing, or like literally you're walking down the street and like you can have a moment of joy. To me, that has been that's life changing for me, and being with, you know, the people in my life, just looking for those
And getting through
little nuggets.
hardships.
Yeah. And then when something hard comes along, you've got that muscle. Some people do gratitude. Some people, you know, there's different ways to look at it. But for me, it's just like, what's joyful? What, you know, it's the sunset, it's the something, it's the weather, it's, you know, my dog is not barking, and that makes me happy, and he's really cute all of a sudden, you know, whatever that is, but looking for those little moments.
Right. Well, thank you, ladies, both. You guys are both good friends, and both inspire me in terms of what you both accomplished, and I appreciate you coming.
Yeah. Thank you for being a good sport with us.
Yeah, sure.
Thanks for not henpecking us.
Yes, I did not.